So, hello guys, I believe everyone can hear me. So, our instructor will be in this on this call any moment from now. Let's just give him a minute or two. He will be joining us shortly.
Okay, sorry guys. Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay, Ella, I can hear you.
Okay, he said he earlier joined, so he's joining again.
Oh, okay.
Sorry for the delay.
Oh, okay, I didn't see him. Maybe he joined extremely early.
Okay, everyone, while we wait for the instructor, please, for the front end guys on the call, please, everyone should go to your room on Discord and drop a reminder so we have more persons because we are just 7 of us, excluding Mr. Maka and I. So please go to your chat room, everyone, please, on Discord and drop a reminder so we have other people because most of them are online now on Discord. So please drop a reminder so more persons will join the call. Thank you. Okay, hello Abdul. Yeah, I think he's already here already. Welcome, welcome. Okay, Mr. Maka, please give him permission, please.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, welcome, Abdul. Abdul, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Abdul, if you can hear me, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, hello. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
So welcome to today's session.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so basically the way this session works is everybody's currently muted. So if they have questions, we'll drop it in the chat as you teach. If there's still enough time at the end of the class, they can raise up their hands and ask whatever questions they have.
Okay.
All right, so you can share your screen and you can begin. The class is all yours.
Okay. 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 Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can. If you can hear me, yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening to you all. My name is Abdul Malik. I'm a front-end software developer at RightCom and Accra, Ghana, and also the team lead at Pedigree, the front-end team lead at Pedigree. I'm very excited to have a discussion on some of the topics, Vue topics with you guys this evening. So today I'll be taking you through setup, ref and reactive syntax, methods, computed, watches and props, and in Vue3. So I I have this presentation, just they are just definitions of the terminologies that we are about to study, and then I'll be using this boilerplate to take you through the practical aspect of it. So the course will start by this. I'll first take you through the definition. When we are done, then if you have any question regarding the definition, you can just unmute yourself and ask. I will give you like 1 minute. If not, then I will take you through the code, how to implement them in Vue.js app. That one too, when I'm done with a topic, I'll give you some few minutes to ask questions, then we continue. I hope it's clear with you. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you. And
Okay,
it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, so let me start. So I learned you guys, you started learning Vue.js some few days ago, and then the Vue3 and V2. V2 is just like an advanced version of V2, and then in Vue3 there are a lot of improvement on how we do things in Vue3. So basically Vue2 and V3, they are just the same thing. If you have little knowledge of Vue3, just have to go through the documentation and then check the new APIs that you have added to the version 2. So I will start by comparing some stuff. So that's basically all. So in the V3, it has a composition API. That's the main feature that developers are interested in Vue3, because in V2, we don't have access to the composition API. And then in V3 too, we have support, TypeScript support. It's more like the support, the types of support in Vue3 is more advanced than in V2. So this one is just a boilerplate that you can just, if you have Vue CLI install, you can use the Vue create command and you type the name of the app that you want to create. Let's say my app is Hello. I have a problem with my connectivity. That's why this one throwing this error. Have problem with the MTN Ghana. So it won't create a new project, but if you have internet, you can do something like this. Then I think, let me take you through the steps. You have this. If you type the command, it will give you this thing. You have the default, which is Vue2, and we have Vue3. You can select any of them. This our project is based on Vue3. So when you click on Vue3, it will start downloading the boilerplate for you. But I have problem with my network, as I said earlier, so I can't do that for you. But after this course, you can just check on from the Vue CLI. I think it's here, Vue CLI. Where is this? Then you install it. It's very simple to install if you have NPM. You use NPM install this or yarn install this, and you have the Vue CLI, and you have access to the Vue in your local machine. Okay, so let's start with the, let me use this thing. We have the setup. So the setup method is part of the composition API. In Vue3, we have two options of creating app. It's either you use the options API or use the composition API. So let me give a demonstration of the, what do you call it, the options API. With the options API, we have something like this. You have the data property like this. Data property, which has this return inside it. And then you can this data property contains all the data variables that you have, the variables that you want to use inside your Vue template. So you can say something like, what do you call it? Let's say title of the app can be hello world. And then this, when you call it inside this, let me comment this out first. So, and comment this one too. I want to show you the difference between the composition API and then optional API before we start the setup method or the setup function. So with this, we have something like title. So when I check inside here, I have the title here. So this is the title of the app that I stated inside my data. So inside this, we have all the component or the Vue instance or the Vue template have access to all this, the variables that you are going to list inside the data property. So you can just have your methods, an object containing all the methods. So this one is in Vue2 or in option or options API. We have computed property to like an object. We have your what do we call it? Other hooks, something like we have methods computed. You can have something like a watch. You have all of them here. So they are all part of the Vue instance. So the method is part of the Vue instance. So if you want to access any variable on the Vue instance, you can use the this property on the Vue instance. So the this property here refers to the Vue instance. So let's say I have a button here that I want to use the button to change the property. I can click me, something like click me. So I'll just bind it to a function. Let's say at click. What is it? I have click me. So this click me will be a function like this. This will be like a function. When I click on it, I want to change the title. So I'll say this dot title equals to this. Okay. So this dot title is let's say hello. So if I click on this, I'm coming. Where is this? I have click me here. On click. It should return to click me. And I have click me as a function, right? So this dot title equals to this. What is going on here? Please, I'm coming in a minute. I'm coming. I have this things here. Yeah, hello. Hello. Yeah, me yeah the intima. Me yeah the me I'm not sure why. Walaikum salam. Oh, hello. I'm very sorry. So I have this coming. This is a method. Okay, mounted. I have this hooks here. So this is the structure of the options API. I wanted to access you. Let me try and change it here. Title equals to hello and see if it will work. Hello equals to hello here. Let me do something like this and see. Yeah, so because we have this one, the this property is on the Vue instance. So anytime you call this, it works. But I'm looking at why this thing is not working. Click me. It should have worked. click me. Title equals to check console of hello. I think this is not working. It's not getting the click event. Let me put it inside this and see. It's still not getting the click event. I click right. Okay, I'll get back to this later. I just wanted to explain to you the difference between the composition API. I think something is failing here and it won't take our time because this wasn't part. I wanted to explain this thing to you. So we have this methods computed property. Oh my God, I didn't spell the methods very well. You see, I didn't spell it well. That's why it was not getting it. Methods, right? So when I click on it, I have the hello changing. The reason why we are getting the value changing is that this all the data properties that you put inside here, they are reactive. So they are part of on top of the Vue instance. So anytime you call this, you are referring to this instance of the Vue app. So whatever property that you bind to it, it will get access to it and then it gets changed here. But with the options, this one is the options API. So it's on top of the Vue app, and this sometimes become bulky because you have to predefine this, you have to define this, you have to define this on top of the Vue instance. And then we are putting a lot of load on the Vue instance. So with the options, the composition API with the setup method, everything changes from here. So we have one setup, the setup function like this, and then we have all the Vue. You can just create your normal variables, your normal methods inside. You can say let title equals to hello world, and then you return it like this, title, and then with this we can get access to the title of the app, and you see we have the title here. So with this one just is like it will wrap all the methods, the functions, the computed properties, the watches inside one setup function. So this is what we are going to study today as part of the composition API in Vue3. So let's go to the PowerPoint. We said Vue3 introduced a setup function. It enables us to extract repeatable parts of components into reusable piece of code. These reusable codes are stored in the form of a function. This function can be used by any component. Its function scope help us to store and protect data. So when you create this, the functions are available. You can then get the functions inside other components, like the chat component can also get access to this data inside the function. So we have, let's go to the setup function is added into components via the setup option. So this option is a hooking point which executes after props are resolved, but before the component instance is created. So what basically we are saying is that with the setup function, whenever you put the setup function, is the first hook that will be called after the rest of the Vue hooks. So if you have a mounted hook, if you have before create hook, this setup function will be called before them. So I can give you an example, like let's say I have a setup, what do you call it? I have a setup function here. In the setup function, I will see console.log. I am called inside setup. And then let's say before create, the before create hook always called before the component is created. So let's see which one will be called first. I'm called inside before create. We have here. So let me check if I'm having the error or something. So the console here. We have the test here. You see the I am called inside the setup. I'm called inside before create. So what is saying is that the setup method, if you include the setup method in your Vue app, is the top level method, is the first, it will be the first method or hook to be created or to be called when you run your Vue instance or when you run your Vue app. Inside that particular file or the Vue component of Vue file, the setup function is the first function that will be called. So if you have some data that you want to make some API calls that you needed to get, you need to get the value before you call the before create or mount hooks. This place is the best place to do that. Okay, so let's continue with the setup. So we said that this in the setup function cannot point to the component instance because the component instance has not been created yet. Yes, for this, we don't call the this keyword inside the component setup. As I did previously, you saw that with the options API, we call the this inside the methods, inside the computed properties or computed methods, you can call the this keyword. But with composition API Vue3, you can't call the this because the setup function is the first level function that is called by the Vue instance. So if I say this is called before the component itself is created or is being mounted. So there's no way the Vue in the setup function can get access to this. So when you call this inside, you see that this here will definitely this here. When you run the app, you see this here is undefined because before the component is created, the this is not available. So you can't get access to this in setup function. That's one thing that we need to keep in our head. Okay, so when you design a setup function, you should avoid using the this keyword. Do not try to access properties or method that belongs to the component instance. The reason is that you might have the setup, might have computed properties here. Because you cannot use the this keyword inside it, then there's no way you can use the this. Let's say I have a computed property called toString. So maybe this one is just a function. Let's say it's a function that converts a string. Okay, no, let's say to uppercase or something like that, uppercase. So you have a computed property that converts a string to uppercase. You can't call it here. You can't call this dot to uppercase here. It won't work because the time that the setup function will be called inside the Vue app, all these properties are not yet been created or they are not yet been called. So there's no way you can get access to them. So what you can do is that you just create your variables, your method, your functions here so that you can access all of them inside the setup function. So it is just an ordinary function assigned to the setup option. Yeah, the setup function is just an ordinary function. If you look at this, it's just an ordinary function that is being assigned to the option or the setup option inside the Vue instance. It has its own function scope. As we said earlier, it has its own function scope. So if I say let title equals to something, hello, I can call this in any of the functions. If I create a function called update, I can just call this and title here direct because the title is inside this function. I can call the title here and change it to something else. Here's something else. Yeah. So with this, I didn't create the function well. This is just an example. So this is inside the scope of this function. So it has its own function scope. You can access functions, variables inside the setup function. So we can define variables and functions in it. These properties are only visible inside the setup function. As a result, they are protected. So they are just like they are wrapped inside the setup function. Yeah. So let's continue with the setup function. I think this will be the last of it. Okay. So this just says the syntax of the setup function. You have the setup, you have the props. If you want to pass the props, you have the context, which provide some properties on the context, like on the context or the view instance that you are using. Then we have the variable. You can create any variable. You can create your function. Then your return objects. This return object contains all the properties that you want the template to access. So if you want something to be visible to the view template, then you return it inside this. So for instance, we have the view template here. We have our view template here. We have our view template here, and we have something like the title, like if I say const title equals to hello. If I want to use it inside the view template, what I must do is to return the object containing the title. So if I come here and I put it inside this title, then the title will be displayed because it's been returned here. If I don't return the title, I can't access it inside the view template. So if I come here, I should see hello displayed here because I'm returning it. So if I have a function, I can also return the function here. So we get back to functions in later of our course. So that is basically the syntax of the setup function. So let's continue. We have the title property is not a data property. Yeah, I'm talking about this title that we are using here. It's not a data property as we saw in the option API. The option API, we have something like data and return this that we said is part of the view instance. It's not a data property. So this title, we can't use it as we use data properties in V2. It's something, it's a function, it's inside the setup function, and it has a function scope, so we can access it as we use in data properties in Vue2. So it is just a property added into the root level of the component instance. So here, if I return it, it's just a function, a property that we have added to the root instance. This is the instance, the root instance is our component here. So if I have a chat component and I pass it as a prop, the chat component can get access to this title because it is part of the instance. It is being called or it is being added to the root level of the view instance created here. So it is available inside the template. So yeah, it's made the return function make it available to the template. Okay, so we have something here. This test, some of the tests are in red. There are some notes that I want us to keep in our head. So the title property inside the setup function is not reactive. It can be made reactive by using ref or reactive hooks. So when we come back to this, we know, as I mentioned earlier, I changed some property. I changed the title using a method on a button. When I click on the button, it changed the title here. We can do this the same to this title property. The title property here inside the setup function is not reactive. So if I call something like, if I say, let me say button, click me, something like click me, then on click, I'll call click me here. So let me copy click me and use it as a function here. So function click me. Now you see because I'm using the Vue boilerplate, I have prettier and other things inside, so they are checking whatever I'm doing. You see, it's throwing an error that click me is declared, but its value is never used, meaning if I want to use it inside the template, I have to return it here. If I don't return it, I can't use it inside it. So I have the click me here. So what I want to do is I will say title equals to I am here. So now I have title here because I said earlier that this has a function scope, and we know if you declare const, you can't reassign it. So that's why it's giving me this error. So I have to change it to let, then I have I'm here. So let's see if I click on it, what happens. Now I have it here. Let me change it so that, okay. If I click on this, you see nothing is happening. But let me do console.log here and see if the function, the click me function is called I am here. So let me click on this. You see I'm here is logging to the console, but it's not updating. Why? Because it's just a property or a variable inside a function, and it's not reactive. You cannot update it directly inside the component. So that's where the reactive and then ref properties comes in. So before I go to the reactive and ref and the reactive properties, I'll just pause here for a minute. If you have any question, then you ask before we continue. Hello. Yeah, hello. Can you hear
you,
me?
Abdul?
Yeah.
Yes.
I said before I start with the reactive and then the ref properties, I would like to pause for like a minute or two. If any of you guys have any question, then you can ask before I continue.
Okay. Okay, so for everybody on the call, please, if you have questions, please drop it on the chat, or if you understood every part of from the slide, from the first part we just took, please just indicate if you understood, or if you don't understand, please just drop it on the chat, please, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. I think there are some tests. Okay, I think who can see the music recording? I think we don't have everyone drop your question. Okay, since we don't have any question, I think I think everything is well understood. So let's continue with the ref and then reactive functions or reactive hooks. Okay, so we start. I think the setup here is not the setup. Okay, we have the ref and the reactive. So let's start with the English before we go to the code. So composition API comes in two ways to introduce a reactive state into the components. Thus, you will face the decision of whether to use ref, reactive, or both. I will help you to make the right choice, but let us start with a quick introduction to both. We have ref method and we have the reactive method. They are all part of the composition API on inside Vue3. They are used to track changes of its argument. So if you pass an argument to ref or reactive, the changes made to it is being tracked. They are being catched by the setup function so that it become available on the root Vue instance. When using them to initialize variables, you give Vue information. Hey, I want you to rebuild or re-evaluate everything that depends on those variables every time they change. Okay, so I think this one is the difference between them. Let's go through them, then we go to the code. So we have ref. Ref can take as argument, that is primitives. We can pass primitive data to ref. They are both used to check for reactivity in Vue3. But what are the differences? Why we ref, not only ref, but we have ref and reactive. We have ref, and then in this case, the ref can take as arguments as primitive. You can pass a Boolean, string, and number, or the primitive data types in JavaScript. You can pass them to the ref as well as objects, but while reactive can only take objects as argument. The reason is that with the reactive, you see we have data properties in V2, and then the data properties are just like that. You can't change them. But with the reactive, if you are building an app using the setup, you can use the reactive to achieve the same property because it's the data property inside Vue2 return an object of different data. So if you are using the reactive inside the Vue3 setup, you can use the reactive to achieve the same thing that you do using V2 data property. Since it can only use objects, you can just reference all your properties inside the objects. With ref, you can replace the whole instance of an object, but while using reactive, you cannot. With ref, you can reassign the object to a different object, but with reactive, you can't. That's why I said earlier, you can use it to achieve the same results as the data property in Vue2. So ref has a .value property that we have to use to get its content, but with reactive, you can accept it directly because the ref is unwrapped. Refs are unwrapped when they are passed to templates. That's why you don't need to write .value there. So now let's get to the code and do something here. Let's see, now I have a normal Vue app. Let me take off the data since we are working with the setup or composition API. So let me think of doing something simple here. So now let's say I have let input equals to something like this. I have this thing. I have an input property, a variable. So I can return the input here, and then I want to display the input. Oh my God, input here. So you go here, I want to bind an input. Let me do something like this. Input placeholder, enter your name or your first name. So V module, let me bind the V module to the input here. Okay, so now whenever this one change, now I will say name is, let's say Malik. Name is Malik, and then I have a function here. Anytime I enter, we know the Vue model is used for like a two-way binding. This one, when you bind any input with the Vue module like this, it keep track of whatever, it keep track of the input variable. Whenever the input variable changes, it will change the property that you assign to it. So if I say Malik here and I go to this, I have Malik here. If I delete and enter, let's say Joshua inside, I still have Malik because the property here, the variable inside this setup is not reactive. So there's no way the template can keep track of the changes made by this property. So if we want this thing to happen, then what we can do is to wrap this property inside a ref or a reactive property. So we can import ref from Vue. From Vue, we can get ref. Then inside this ref is a method that take an argument, right? So we pass a ref here, and then this is the argument of the ref. So now this ref is also keeping track of whatever changes that happens to this input variable inside the template, inside of this template. So if I come here and I delete, you see, as I'm deleting, this one too is gone. If I enter Joshua, I can see Joshua being updated inside the Vue, our template. This is because now we have a property which is keeping track of whatever happens inside this. So let's say I want to also input something here. Input, I'm coming, let me do this. This one will be quicker. Input, then the placeholder will be enter your last name, and then we have the last name here. Then V model, let me see, instead of using what do we call it? Instead of using input here, let me change it to, let's say first name, right? First name, and then change this one to first name, so that I can get a different V model of last name. So last name, then let last name, let me import reactive here. Reactive is also a method that takes an argument. So let me pass last name to Musa, right? So I have to return this last name here. I have last name. So last name is binded here. So I can say something like the first name. Yeah. Let's say P. Name is, let's say first name, and then last name. Okay, so now we have your name is Malik and the first and the last name. So I want to demonstrate the reactive here. So if I use the reactive here, you see, it's not changing. Let me see something. The reactive is the last name. Aha, that's where we come back to the properties or the differences that we said. With reactive, ref can take as arguments like primitive, that's most common, Boolean, string, and number. But you see, as well as objects, while reactive can only take objects as arguments. Since we have what do you call it? The last name to be a string, reactive cannot update it, but that wasn't what I wanted to show. So let me see. Let me use a different property here, person. Before that, let me change all the last name to person. Then I can see person last name. And so here I will say person dot last name. So with this, I'm sure now we can have some fun of this thing didn't come. I have person dot last name. So it didn't come because I didn't call person here. I just called last name. So we have person dot last name. We have this. When I change this, you see the last name is going. I can see Kofi or Kwame because they are all reactive. So with this, it's very, very clear that you can't change or you can't make, you can't pass a primitive value to the reactive method here. So now we have two here, two data here. So now assuming I just want to change the data here. I just want to change it here. I have a button here and I want to change something. Let me use this when the button is clicked. So I can say at click, I want to change you clicked me or click me, something like that. Click me will be better. Click me will be better. So I can have a property called what do we call it? Anything. Let's say click status can be not clicked. If we want it to be reactive, since it's just a string, let's use ref here and pass this to it and then return it here. And then inside of this, I want to display the click status here. And now when I click, I want to change it to I am clicked. So now this one is the ref here. So if I want to change it, you can say function click me. Let me just copy it here so that it will be faster. I can just say this, then return it here. And now I have click me here. I want to change this variable, the content of it. So I will just pass it into this function and say click status equals to I am clicked or you or anything I'm clicked. That is cool. So now I have I am clicked here. So if I do this, it won't work. Let me test it. If I do it, it won't work. Nothing works here because with the ref return an object, the reference or this ref return an object. So on the object, if I want to change something or if I want to get something, if I want to check something inside, or if I want to get the content of the ref inside the setup function, I should call the value property on that object. So I have to say something like this, that value. So now it's returning the value of this click status. So whenever I click this, it will change the value of the click status. But when you are using it inside your component, you don't need to return or you don't need to see click.stay value because the Vue instance already know that it is a reference and you want to access its value. So you don't need to pass the value here. So let me reload it and click on it. You see I'm clicked, it's being displayed. Why? Because I'm now changing the value of it here. So that's why we said here in the differences between the ref and we said ref has a dot value property that we have to use to get its content. So if you want to get the content of the ref inside the setup, you call the value instance. Okay, so you call the value instant and then you get it. So assuming you want to change something here, you want to change a property on what we call it, the reactive here. Since the reactive is an object, we can just go on and create, let's see, what do we call it? We can just create any list, constant list, or let's see, something like fruits can be a reactive object, right? Then I can have a name, what do you call it? A name, purple, right? Paul, right? Then the price can be, let's say, Ghana cedis, 100 Ghana cedis. So we can return it here and then display fruit here. I want the name, so to be fruit.name. So now I have the name here. Assuming I want to change the price or the name of it. Let's see, when somebody enter this one, I want to change the name. So let me see, let me use any input variable here. V module, combine it to the fruits dot name, and then let's see, the price can be price. So anytime I click on this, let's see, anytime I click on the name and I click on change something here, I want to change the name of the fruit. I want to change the fruit, the name of the fruit, and the price, right? Or better still, I can just use a normal, I can just call the fruit dot name here, and then if I click on this, I want to change the name of the fruit. So what is this stuff? We have fruit, right? So this, I can just say fruits dot name equals to mango, right? So if I click on this, I want to change it. So when I click on this, it changes to mango, right? Because this one is reactive and we are changing only the mango property, the name property here, sorry. Yeah. So, and one thing to note here is that when I call this, I didn't see what we call it, dot value dot name. If suppose I use ref, I have to call the value here because where is it? Yeah, the fruit, I have to call the ref here. You see, immediately I put ref, the editor, we have this one is underlined, telling you that we are using a ref. Yeah, so fruit.value dot name. So the value property contains this object here. So fruit.value dot name will change to mango because we are using reactive. So you have to take note when you are using reactive or you are using ref. With ref, you have to, as anything that you are displaying inside the template is on top of the value of the ref object. But with the reactive, you just have to call it direct inside the setup and outside the setup. But with the ref, inside the setup, if you want to change or if you want the value in, you want to make a complex calculation or whatever, on a ref, you need to call the value, the ref name and the value and the property that you want to assign. If it's a normal string, it will be just fruit.value. If it's number, if it's Boolean, it's whatever, you can just fruit.value. But if it's an object, you have to get the object's name or the property name on it. So with this, I think through with ref, and then reactive syntax. If you have any question, then you ask. If not, we continue to methods, computed, and watches property. Okay, so as usual, I'll just give you some minutes. If you have any question, you ask. If not, then we continue. Hello.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you, Abdul. Okay, so
You can
guys,
hear me?
if you have any question, please just drop it on the chat. If you have any question, please just drop it on the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak.
Sorry.
Okay, I think you can go on.
Okay. Since no one is silent, means everybody is okay. So now let's continue using our setup inside our Vue3 component. We have methods in Vue3. So we said methods in Vue3 are functions that we create to perform logic on Vue properties or bind to Vue templates to trigger an action. We have computed properties in Vue2. That's how we call it computed property. It was an object that returns a list of computed properties inside a Vue data or options Vue option API. But here it's just like a method. A computed is a method inside Vue3 that you create. So each computed property that you create, you have to call the computed method. So we have a computed property in Vue3. Is used to declaratively describe a value that is dependent on other values. If a value is dependent on other values, you use that. You use computed property. So we have this reactive values, and anytime that you want a property to, let's say, perform some kind of filtering or some kind of computation on a reactive property and return its value whenever the properties change, then you use computed method or computed property. So this feature of Vue.js allows for transformation or computation based on our data. We can reuse the results of this computation and transformation in our DOM template. And we have a watch or a watcher. Watchers provide Vue.js. Vue.js uses the ability to produce side effects in reaction to a change in state in one or more reactive variables. So the watcher, what it does is that it keeps an eye on a Vue property. So if I have a property that changes, if the property changes, I want to make an API request to make some, to get some data and then add it to the Vue component, then this is the place that you do. I personally use this watch property a lot when we are making and what we call it, when I'm making a server-side pagination or server-side search on tables. In server-side pagination or tables, the pagination values doesn't depend on the client side. So if, let's say, I have a data, let's say like I'm working with a backend data that return thousands or millions of data, I cannot fetch all of them at once and display them in the table. So what I do is, if, let's say, I want to display the first 10 data inside the table and paginate the rest. So the first data will be, I will make an API request and get the first 10. And then on top of the URL to make the request to the backend, there will be the next, the previous, there will be search, there will be limits, there will be these properties on the API. So anytime somebody click on next, I just check, I use the watcher to check whenever those methods are clicked. So if the property or the limits or the next or the previous or the search property change, I'll use this watcher to watch them. Anytime any of them change, I'll just make an API request and get the data and update in the table. So if I have a pagination of like 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if somebody click on the fifth one, I'll just get the value of the fifth one because the watcher will return the change property. So that in that case, it will be 3. So I'll just pass it to the next 3. Then the API will give me the next 3, the third set of data. Something like a search or server-side search. If you are building a robust server-side search, it's the same thing that you do. You can just use this watch to check whenever the input data changes, then you make an API request. So this is very, very important when you are building a robust application. So that's what we normally use. So instead of watches provide users the ability to produce side effects to change in state in one or more reactive values. Okay, so let's continue. We have some differences between methods and computed properties. Computed properties and methods in Vue.js have completely different use cases. Methods do not keep track when the values within the function change. So this is the reason that a function has to run every time to derive the result. On the other hand, computer properties keep track of changes in the value. They don't need to run every time to check. Also, for this reason, computer properties are cached. Okay, what this English is telling us is that with the computer properties, you just have to work on reactive.
Okay, sorry, Abdul, for
Yes.
interrupting you. I think there's a message from Mr. Moses on the chat.
Okay. Okay, I'm coming. I think Mr. Moses, where is the chat? Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. He said I have a low battery and might run out of power. Yeah, I just connected my charger right now. I just noticed, so it's now charging. I think I have 30% now, and my battery too is strong. So yeah. I hope it's clear now. Hello?
Yes.
Okay, so let me continue. So we said the computed property and methods in Vue.js have completely different use cases. So they are all just a function, but in Vue.js, we use them in different scenarios. With the methods, as I did earlier, you can just bind it to a function, what do we call it? You bind it to buttons, or whenever you want to an event is triggered in your component, you can bind it to a method to do whatever calculation or whatever computation that you want to do. Or you can use it to work on data structures. You can just use it to work on your data structures and return the value to other methods to make API, a whole lot of stuff. But with the computed properties, they are being cached. So the computed properties reference, you reference them to a reactive variables or a reactive data. So we have like something like an input is a reactive data input value. So whenever that input value changes, you want to do something. So it's better you bind it, you use it inside the computed property so that you don't end up calling the function. You know, with functions, a normal method, you just have to call it before it gets executed. So if you use a function in that regard, anytime you have to be calling and calling and calling the function. So if users click on the button like 1,000 times, you have to call those functions 1,000 times, and you know how expensive to do this kind of computation in application. So it's better you use the computed properties, so that the computed properties will keep an eye of the individual data properties that you are using inside. So whenever the data property changes, it will just change the results for you. So you can use it for filtering, or you can use it for any other purposes. So the next thing is the difference between the computed property and a watch. They have a computed properties, and watches have different use cases. It will be a better idea to use the computed property whenever we need to calculate a value based on other properties, considering that V will re-evaluate the property every time any of its dependencies is changed, and we will not need a custom watcher for each dependency. So as explained earlier, you want to change a certain property to uppercase anytime, let's say the first name to uppercase, anytime it's being changed. You don't need to create a watcher to watch this small input value. Whenever somebody enter first name, then you watch it. No, it's better you use a computed property so that you can just change it to uppercase. You write one code anytime the input field except changes, then the computed property will recalculated. It will just pass the new value to it and just convert it to uppercase for you. So, but a watcher will be better if we need to do something more generic than just get a value, such as HTTP calls, store data in local storage, set a timer, or whatever we couldn't do with computed properties. As I said earlier, I personally use the watcher for paginations and stuff. Sometimes when you are creating a real time, it's like a timer, something like, let's say you are being asked to build a page where a page for an event. And you know, an event you have like 10 days or 3 days or 4 days. So if you want to create a timer that recalculate the number of days remaining or hours remaining, it's better you use a watcher, and then you can even combine both of them and then use a watcher and then the computed property. Whenever you change the watcher, the computed property will recalculate the time and then display. So we have to know when to use the watcher so that we don't overuse them. Okay, so I think with this, it's good we get back to our code so that we demonstrate what we just learned. So with the method in Vue3, method are just functions that we create here. This one is a method. It just has functions that you create inside your setup. Unlike the set options API, where we have a method or methods as an object containing functions, here you create them individually and then you return them here if you want to use them inside your Vue component. So with the Vue2, we create a methods or methods object, and you put all your method inside. So in this case, you just put this one inside, and then you just do whatever you want to do when it's being clicked. But inside the Vue3, this function here is a method. Okay. So with the computed property, let's create a scenario where we can use a computed property. Let me see if I can create a list. Let me see if I can create a list. See, now we know the difference between this. But with the ref and the reactive, it depends on you, the developer, when you want to use ref. Personally, I don't like combining writing two stuff. So instead of using reactive, I'm a fan of using ref. So all my code will be like a ref. I know with ref, if I want to assign like toggle between, let's say a radio button, or you want to toggle between a checkbox with two data, I want to toggle between true or false, like whether it's true, it's checked, or it's not, it's unchecked. It's better you use it because you know the reactive cannot do that. You can't pass a primitive data value to data to reactive. So I like using this. But if you want to use the reactive tool, it's fine, but you have to know the differences. Anytime you're using the ref, you need to call the value of the ref. So now let's use a simple, let's say const list, something like a list like this. So I can see list of what I don't know the list. And let me see person or people, something like this. I don't know how to create. Then I'll say name John, Isaac, Joshua, Coffee, then we have coffee here. So now let me call this, and let me clear these things here. I'll clean these things through from here, and say people, right? People. So I want to let me display people in a div. So V4 P in people K equals to P. So let me display P here. So now I should have used ref since I want it to be reactive. So let me use the ref here. So I have people here. So I have John, Isaac, Joshua, Kofi. Now, if let's say I want to convert all the I want to convert them to uppercase, I can just what do we call it? Or let's say I want to filter, let me use something like constant filtered people or something like that. Computed, then it's just a function that returns something. So I will say this, then I will put something here. Instead of displaying this, I want to display the computed property of people. I can put something like this, search V module search, right? I can put something like search. So constant search equals to ref, just like an empty string. And then what I will do is that if what do we call it? If search dot value is empty, just return an empty array, right? Okay, return an empty array. So then I come here, return else. I should return what is the value here? Expected to return a value. I just returned it now. So I can call people dot value dot filter. I want to filter people if whatever the person type here is part of it. I want to do a search, a simple search here. So I just say P dot includes search. Since I'm using it inside, I have to call the value. So it will return the filtered data here. So let's test this one here. We don't have any, but we know that we have J, right? So let me enter J and see. It's not doing anything here because I'm not displaying, I'm displaying this. If this, return people, I'm going to filter. If p dot equals this, okay, I'm coming right. Let me check what the problem is. Let me first display this and see if it will work. I have John, Isaac, Joshua, Kofi, and I have this, which is here. Okay. I have search, which is here. People is here. You have John, Isaac, Joshua, Kofi as an array. If there's no search, return. But if that return people, the value of filter p includes search.value. So why I'm not getting anything from the computed property? John. Okay. If I enter this, okay. Okay. Something want to come, but I don't know why it's not coming. I'm coming right. I'm checking why it's not updating. Hello. I'm getting data here. Hello. But why? Let me check why it's not displaying at the first place. Yeah. I have John. Oh, okay. I think the problem was that I used this one. J was capital and I was typing small j. You get it? So it's working. So this is just an example of using the prop or computed property inside Vue.js. So return, I can return this instead of using includes, I will say to lowercase, right? Let me convert it to lowercase. Okay. Then convert this one to lowercase, right? Yeah, to lowercase. So when I enter small j, it should work. So if I enter K, F-O-K-O, to filter coffee. Excuse me, right? So this one is just a clear example of using filter property. So anytime this property here, this property, search property changes, it will recalculate the value of the people to be returned here based on the search parameter. So this one is just a function that you run once, and then instead of displaying it here, displaying the people here, you just put this filtered version of the people list, and then you display them as such. So you can use this technique to build like a simple search application. Then you don't need to recall the function anytime. This, other than that, you have to bind, put a search here on change value. You can put an on-change function, then you recalculate this value whenever this property is being changed. I think this one is a better way of doing that, because with this, anytime there's a change event, it will call the function. So the function will be called and called and called several times. So let me give a demonstration of the watch property here. You have the watch, the property that you want to watch. You put the name of that property here. And one thing that you should know that in this computed property, you have to always return a value. You know, as you see, as I remove the return value, it's giving me a lot of error, because expected to return a value in computed function. Always, you need to return something inside the computed property. So if you don't return, then it's an error. So you do your calculation, and then you return the results of it, and the result of it will be here for you. Because if you don't return, what are you using inside the template? Okay, with the watch, you just put the watch here, and then the name of the property or the variable that you want to watch is here, and then a callback function here. So the callback function is here. Hello, watch is not defined. It means do I have to import watch? I'm not sure you have to import watch. The watch is always part of Vue.js. There's no need to import it, right? Okay. Watch. And then you pass the name of the watch, the property here. Okay, the callback function here. So let's see console.log. Hello. Why does it need me to call watch from Vue? Let me do that and see if that one will work, because I don't see cannot read properties of null. I don't see a way that I have to call watch. I'm coming. Give me a minute. I think I'll pour some water on my table and I have to clean. Okay, let's continue. Let me check why it's throwing an error because of the watch. Or did I spell the watch wrong? Yeah. So hello, you see, anytime I type something, it's watching whenever that property changes. So when I say this, you will say that, let's say anytime, let me do something like this. Let's say count, let count equals to 0. Let me make it a ref 0. So then return count here and return count. Let me see p tag and return count here, count. So anytime this one is click, I want to say count plus and see what happened. Count must use the value to, okay, yeah, not value. So anytime it changes, I want to display the value of count here. Count is well.
Okay, sorry, Abdul, I don't know, I think it's from my end, but I can't see your screen. So please, for every other person, if you can see his screen, please just indicate on the chat so I will know it's from my end.
Oh, okay. You can hear me talking, but you can't see the screen.
Okay, yes, it's from my end. They said they can see your screen. So
You
maybe I
can,
will have to check my network.
oh, okay. So they can see now, right? They can see, okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so you are welcome. So I wanted to demonstrate the watch property. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, that even the count is not displaying here. Count should have been displayed here. I'm calling it inside the for loop. That's why it's not displaying. So I should see, you see, it's giving the number of times this thing has been. Yes, so this is like a clear and example of how to use the count. Anytime that something changes, this property changes, this watch function is called. So if you call 10 times and you want to do something, if you want to make an API request, you can make an API request and change and get the data and then add it to the Vue template. So if I click it 1 million times, 1 million will be called. So in Vue3, I think there's one thing they call watch effects. In Vue2, we only have watch, but in Vue3, there's watch effects. There's watch effects. The watch effects here, what it does is that it is already imported. So it's the same thing. It has a callback function, but with the watch effect, it doesn't take any property name, because the watch effect watch whatever property that you have inside here. So let's say I say console.log, hey, you see, whenever I run this app, hey will get called. You see, it will get called. But if I click here, nothing changes here, since the watch effect doesn't know the property that you want to watch. If you want him to know the property, want it to know the property that it should watch, you just use the property inside. If you use it as inside a function, inside whatever method that you write inside here, it will just get called. The watch effect will just get called. So one is, you see, I say hey and returning the value here, hey 0. So what happens if I click? Anytime I click, you see the watch effect keep on changing. It gets changed, even though the calculation that I'm doing is not happening inside the watch effect, because this one is referencing to the count variable, which is a ref, and the ref2 is reactive. Anytime this one get changed, this watch effect get changed. But the difference between the watch and the watch effect is that, let me reload the page. You see, at any point in time, the watch effect get called. It will always get called at the first rendering of the Vue application. When you first render a Vue application, the watch effect called. But with the watch, it doesn't get called because the property that you are referencing is not yet changed. Now, when you load it, the property is count, which is 0. So there's no need for watch to get called unless the property change. So here, when I reload it, it doesn't get called because this one is 0. Let me do console.log here and see, so that you get something like hi. Let me see. You see, if I reload it, only the console.log inside the watch effect get logged into the console. Only this value get logged to the console, but the ones inside the watch is not called. Why? Because the watch function is not called, because this property is not changed. So immediately I click on it, the watch get called. So in a scenario that you want to use this, will be like, let's say you are first rendering, you want to call, you use the default value of, let's say, a variable to make an API call. as the first time the page render, you want to make an API call, may say you want to send a data to a backend where the value is 0 or the value is 10 initially, then you can use this watch effect, because the watch effect will first get called. So whatever methods or whatever call that you do inside this will get called. And subsequently, when this data get changed, the watch effect will also get changed. So that is the clear difference between them. I think we are left with one thing that we need to discuss, then we close. Yeah, I think we are left with props. Okay, as usual, if you have any question, you ask. If not, we continue with props and then we close the section. Yeah, hello. Do you have any question?
Okay, so please, guys, if you have any question, everyone on the call, please, you can raise your hands and we'll allow you to speak, or you can drop your questions on the chat, please. Okay, apart from Yemi, we still have other people. Please just indicate if you understand every part of the slide. If you have questions, either you drop it on the chat or please raise your hands and we'll allow you to speak and you ask your question. Thank you.
Okay. Since we don't have any question, we have to get to the last part of our session. We have props. Props is like a special keyword which stands for properties. It can be registered on a component to pass data from a parent component to one of its children components. This is a lot easier compared to using state management libraries like Vue3 for Vue. So in Vue, in almost all these single page application libraries or frameworks, you have a way of keeping data inside components. We have like a local data and we have global data. With Vue, we use Vue3 for managing state for global data. So if you want data to be available for all your components, you can use Vue3 and create that install for that data. Like React, you can use Redux, MobX, or other state management libraries. And when we want to manage a local state with Vue, we use the Vue props as compared. We use Vue props, yeah. With React, you can reuse state hooks or those state hooks to manage your prop data inside one component, and when you pass it, it's the same thing, you pass it as a prop. So with Vue2, the same thing. When you are in the parent component, you create your data properties. In Vue2, we create a normal data properties. Those are the properties for the current Vue instance or the current component. So if you want to pass, let's say if I want to pass this data, if I want to pass John, Isaac, Joshua, and Kofi to what do we call it, to a child component, what we can do is send it as a prop to that child component to use it. So that's basically what we call, or we call it a prop, or that's basically what a prop is. So let me see, create a list here, list dot view, and then inside the list dot view, I'll create a view template here, and then I'll just say props, and then pass the name of the prop here. I'm passing this filtered from the chat component from the parent. So this is the parent. I will first import the chat component, which is list from list, and then I have to then call the components object on the view instance and pass the component to the view instance so that view will know that the list is a child component of this parent component. So this object, any component that you want to, if you have like 10 or 20 or 1,000 child components, you just put them inside this object. You can say something like this. A lot of people do this, or they can even use it small letter to assign. Just since it's an object, you can just write only the name here so that to reference this list. So when I come here, I can just put this list here, and then view will see it to be a child component of the parent component. So what we need here is we need to pass the prop, which is the filtered value here to this. Yeah, so we have this and this. So when I come here, I should be able to get this. You see, where is this? I stopped displaying this. Okay, I think it's Joshua. Yeah, you see, when I enter John, Joshua, whatever, you see, I get the change here because this data or this filtered data is being passed as a prop to this child component. The child component doesn't have the property. It doesn't have this filtered value, people property, but the parent component has. And we are using the setup. And what we said is that the setup component add all these properties, the return value, people, filter, search, whatever count, they are all being added to the current view instance. The current view instance is this here that we have here. So any child component can get access to it. And passing data from the chart, parent to child, what you need to do is pass it as a prop. You just pass it as a prop here. So we have this John, Isaac, I think Peter or something like that. So I can just search for Peter here. Peter, and then I have Peter here. So that's one way of displaying prop. I think with the, what do we call it? With this, there's a, if I haven't remember, there's a provide. Vue3 has a provide method. That provide method, if I want to make, let's say provide, what do we call it? Does it take a method? I think provide doesn't take this. It take a method, right? So let's say I want the name to be people, right? So, and it will reference this filtered property, right? I'm coming. Let me check how provide is being used because I think I use it in one of components. I don't normally use it, but I just wanted to show you. I think I did something here. Yes, it's kind of the same. We have the provide, the name, and the city. So it should have worked, but I'm getting an error. I don't normally use it, but I think it should work. Yeah, it's just a command that I have to use. So now inside the chat component, I can use inject here. I can use inject. Inject should be here. Inject. Then what do I want to inject? I want to inject people in this component. So I'll just come here and use people. Import inject from Vue. And I think it should work, right? I think that should work. I did an example here. I don't normally use it, but it kind of work. Yeah, you can just assign it like this, or you can just call it here. But if I call it and it doesn't work, I can use it inside the composition API, but it should have worked here, right? Unexpected token, expected this. Okay. So I have this inject, it's not working, right? It should be the same. Oh, sorry. Inject is just a method, sorry. I'm very sorry for that. It's just a method here. So it should work, right? Identify expected, right? So what I can do here is, since we are using the setup API, I can use setup here and then create a variable called, let's see, my people. And then it will just call inject and then get the people and return these people here. It will return these people here and then use my people instead of people. And I think this one should work for us. I should search for John and get John and this. So we have, these are all alternative ways of passing a prop. You can use this prop. This prop can accept a whole lot of properties. If you want, if you have thousands of them, you can just put them here. If I want count, I can just put count here and then come here to this component and pass count to it. Then if I want to display count, I can just pass count here. So I have this count. I think count, I disable the value count here. So I have count. Count should be a prop. And when I come here, I should be able to get count here. So the reason why I use this setup with the composition API is that if I use props here, unless I pass the props to this function before I can access the prop inside this setup function, because we said earlier that the setup doesn't have access to the this keyword. So most at times I prefer using this one. You can just inject them instead of passing them as a prop so that all child components can get them. So when you come here, you can just put another inject provide here. Provide, what do you want to provide? Account. And then I can get the count here. I can get the count. Where is the chart? Let me delete this. When I come here, I also see const count equals to inject count. And then count. So let me check something like, I don't know why I'm not getting a count inside this component. I don't think count is being displayed. Count is not displaying here. Now let me do console.log and see why count. I'm not getting count from this. Count. It's not returning alien value here. Count is not returning. The value of it is 0 because I'm getting it here. Okay. What should I do? I have to do something like count. Let me say count.value and see. Yeah, so yeah, because I'm pointing count.value here, but as I'm getting the count.value from the console, but I don't know why it's not displayed. I did the same mistake. Sorry. I put it inside the for loop. That's the reason why, because the for loop is not called. That's why it's not displayed. Sorry. So now we can get the count here, and anytime the count get increased. So here, if let's say I want to do something inside the chat component, like multiplying the count by 2 or something, I can just create another constant. Let's say multiply, and use a computed property here. And then use a computed property and return this count dot value, let's say times 2. So this one, anytime I get count, I can just multiply it by 2. This is not a function. Why is it? So you see, is anytime I click is being multiplied 62. It's adding and multiplying it by 2. So I think that's all for now. This is we have a 2 ways. I think there's a third way. The third way is just use it as a props, and you can just, the first way of passing a prop is, the first one is using it like this, as we use in Vue2. Then you create a prop. You can create a props here. This props can be object. It can be object. It can be an array of the props name. You put the props names inside this. The props name inside here. If you want to accept them inside the setup, what you do is you just use props. So instead of using inject, it will be like props dot people, or yeah, dot people, like this, prop dot people. This is another way you want, if you want to access it here, or you use the inject to inject all the props that you want to use. So const my people equals to inject and people. So you can get all of the properties here and return them, or do whatever you want to do. If there's an extra computation that you want to do inside this component, if you use the inject, this one's become a variable inside the scope of this setup. Then you can call them and do whatever you do with it. Then you return them inside this return object and get them inside your template. So if you want to use the inject, you use the inject with the provide. So use the provide. If the provide accept one variable at a time. So if you want to provide like 10 functions or whatever you want to provide, you will list all of the provide here, so that when you call the inject, it shouldn't work on only this list. Any chat component that you put inside here. If you have like 10 or 20 chat components, you get access of them using inject. So this is much easier way of accessing parents properties inside the chat component in Vue3. It's much easier to access them than first passing them as a prop. So with this, I'll end my the session here. I think we are done with all of the setup, ref, and reactive syntax methods, computed watches, and props. So if you have any question on whatever that I explained to you, you can raise them now. If you have any contribution, you have any comments, you just raise your hands, and then you'll be given access to say it. Then we end the session. Okay, thank you all for coming, and then thank you, Top University, for giving me this opportunity to share the little knowledge that I have with you. Okay.
This class. Thank you so much for taking out time to teach today on Vue. Okay, guys, so please, we've come to the end of today's class. So please, if you have questions, you can drop it on the chat, or if you have any concern, or if you understood, you can also indicate. So please do that now before we end this class. Or if you want to speak, you can just to do that.
Yeah, guys.
Hello. So I think somebody want to talk, but I can't hear. I can't hear anything.
Okay, I don't think there are any questions so far.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on this session. So guys,
Okay.
do we have any questions? If there are no questions in the next 2 minutes, we would be rounding up.
Oh, okay. Okay. So somebody said you need if I can get a slide, maybe I'll just share with you on LinkedIn if so that you will share with them. Yeah. Somebody's asking for the slide.
Okay. Yeah, and also I posted a link to Abdul's LinkedIn profile. So please give him a follow on LinkedIn.